Hello, I'm Sky Matsuhashi, founder of SmartPokerStudy.com, the place for poker players who are always striving to be better today than they were yesterday. Poker people, don't be left out. Make sure you listen to episode 64, where I started my hand reading series and discussed all the things we can learn from showdowns. Hey, poker people. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for your Patreon support, and thank you for spreading the word, because that's the only way this show is gonna grow. It's another Friday, I've got a lot going on, and I'm really behind schedule, so we'll dive right in. Today I'm featuring 3 questions from some killer poker people, so let's roll! Hit up the show notes at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod65 for links to everything I discussed today, and to join the Smart Poker Study Nation. Alrighty, this question comes to us from Rob via a website comment. Hi Sky, I totally get the tight is right philosophy of the early levels of a sit and go. The early levels can easily amount to only 20 to 30 hands, and in that small sample, we don't always get a decent, playable hand in position. On top of that, it's rare to get a playable hand in position with the action folded to you. So, for most of the lower levels, I'm playing fold 'em, hold 'em, and almost always get into a short stack scenario. Any suggestions for the above scenario? Well, thank you so much for this question, Rob. I really appreciate it. And I still play a ton of sit and goes, and I also prescribe to the tight is right philosophy that you mentioned. Yes, you'll be folding most of the time, but you can find spots to open and even re-raise or just raise over limps and steal versus the right players in the blinds. You want to look for guys that fold a lot and also keep your steals to the button, small blind, and occasionally the cutoff with the right players on the button and the blinds. When you're not stealing and you have a decent hand that can get value, like pocket pairs and suited broadways and connectors, you can open up your opening ranges based on the players yet to act. So the range that I play isn't set in stone. I will change it from time to time. If you're dealt something a little outside the range, but you're on the button with weak blinds, or you're in the MP and you just feel like opening because you think it's a good spot, go ahead and open. The more you practice it, the more spots you'll find to pick up chips with some well-timed aggression. Also, look for opponents who give up easily post-flop, so even if they call you, they'll fold a lot to C-bets. And like you said, with tight sit-and-go play, sometimes you won't pick up hands that you can open with or 3-bet with, so you'll end up getting to that sub-15 BB short stack pretty quickly, and you'll have to get comfortable with your push-fold game and practice it with programs like Hold'em Resources Calculator or sit-and-go endgame tools. And I have links to both of these in the show notes. You can even just use push-fold charts that you find online. I really recommend getting comfortable with short stack play as a sit-and-go and an MTT player. You need to get really comfortable with these situations because they happen all the time, man. Alrighty, thanks again for that question, Rob, and good luck, good buddy. Okay, question number 2 today is from Chris. He says, Hi, Sky. I've been listening to your podcasts, and I find them entertaining and informative. I would like more info on playing live as... so far, I have found that you focus a lot online. I play exclusively live and would like better ideas on how to take better notes on hands to be able to study later. Thanks, Chris. Well, thank you so much for the compliment and for the question, Chris. I appreciate it. Okay, so you want to know how to take better notes on hands from live play for later study. Here's my quick 5-step answer. Practice, review, post, learn, repeat. So let me dive into each of these. I'll just say all 5 again real quick for you. Practice, review, post, learn, repeat. So for the first one, practice. On your next trip to the card room, simply use Evernote and practice taking hand notes on it, or you can use a pen and a paper if you prefer. Write down all the important details you think will help in later review. These details include stack sizes, positions, the blind level if it's a tournament, exact hole cards, the board cards, actions on each street, bet sizing on each street as well, of course, your reads on the opponent, and anything else that might help you later analyze the hand. For example, here's a poorly recorded hand. I open MP to 250. He shoves 4,000. I call with ace king suited. He has ace jack off. Ha, jack off. I win. So that's a poorly recorded hand. Here's a better way of recording that hand. 8 players, 50, 100, 10 ante level, 3,400 chip stack. I open to 250 in middle position with ace king suited, folds to the BB, who is a lag donk who 3-bets a ton, and he open shoves 4,000 with ace jack off. I call. So that was just a little bit more info the second time, but that added info will allow you to do a whole, a much better analysis later in Flopzilla or however you study off the table. And I want to emphasize the word practice. That's what I call step number 1, practice. And practice is so important. It'll take time for you to be able to recall the action at the end of a hand so that you can write it all down accurately. You don't want to be writing down information as you play a hand, of course, so you'll have to recall what happened earlier in the hand. But practice does make perfect, and perfect practice makes a winner. So get to it and start practicing. So step 2 after practice is review. When you're back home, whip out dem notes and start analyzing hands. If your notes are complete, if they're complete enough for good analysis, then that's great. But you might find some hands where you missed like a key bit of information and you have to think back and try to remember what it was. Maybe you forgot the opponent's stack size, something like that. Take this mistake with you the next time you play and practice taking better notes. For example, maybe you forgot to record your opponent's stack size like I just said. Well, that can make a huge difference when you're analyzing for pot odds or implied odds. Just commit to taking better notes next time and learn from your mistakes. So step 1 was practice. Step 2, review. Step 3 is post. So post your hands in forums or in a Facebook group. And shameless plug, the Smart Poker Study Facebook group at smartpokerstudy.com/discuss is a great place for it. One of the great things about doing this with live hands is the forum members or Facebook discussion group members will ask you all sorts of questions like, has he ever 3-bet light before? Or what type of player is he? Or what's your image? Or how close were you to the money? These questions will help you realize what information you're missing when you record live hands, and you can learn from this and do better recording in the future. So the 4th step after posting the hand is learn. So in the review and the post steps, you'll realize what info you're missing when you record live hands, and learn from this. This is the important part right here. First you practice, but then you learn from your mistakes. Commit to not missing these the next time, these mistakes that you made. Make a list of the key things you need to record for precise analysis later. Don't ignore the questions that forum members asked, or the fact that you need more info for better studies. So learn those mistakes and get it done better next time. So step number 5, the final step, is to repeat. Of course, now you want to take all you've learned into your next session and practice taking better notes. The more you do this, the better you'll get. And that's how guys like Andrew Brokos and Nate Mavis are able to write books about their live tournament play. They've both written books about their World Series journeys, or the main event journeys at the World Series. And these guys simply take great notes, and it really comes from tons of practice doing so. And then analysis after the fact as well, of course. And this actually gives me a great idea. I'm going to record all the important hands in the upcoming Colossus. I don't know what I'll do with this info yet. Maybe make an epic post or some killer videos or turn it into an ebook or something, If I go on and win the sucker, I'll definitely make it an ebook. So stay tuned for that. Now, there are lots, so Chris, in addition to just recording the notes yourself on paper or in Evernote, there are lots of apps like Share My Pair and Poker Agent that help you record your hands at the tables. And there are even physical poker journals available, and you can get some on Amazon.com that prompt you for more information that you'll use later to analyze your hands. You can try these, but I can't speak to any of them because I just really don't find them necessary, and I haven't tried them. Like I said, Evernote or a pen and paper are the way to go for me. So what I want you to do is to practice taking notes, review later, post the hands in forums, learn what details you're leaving out, and repeat the process in your next trip to the card room. Alrighty, rock on, Chris. So today's final question number 3, comes from Firaga, our old friend. And something? I just realized Firaga sounds like a really cool Final Fantasy name. Actually, Firaga might be like a 3rd level fire spell, if I remember correctly. If you know the answer to that, if Firaga was like fire, Firaga, something like that. In Final Fantasy X, it might have been. Anyway, it was actually quite a long email with questions from Firaga. So I'll just read you the abridged version with his 2 questions. He says, Sky, good morning. I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, when you develop a plan for the flop that involves your plan for further streets, how important is it that you stick to that plan in the middle of the hand, even when presented with clear evidence that your plan may not have been a good plan? Then he goes on into an example hand. So we'll get back to that question. Question number 2 is, prior to Black Friday, I was a winning regular sit-and-go tournaments player, and I also played a lot of cash games. I left poker and returned recently to find sit-and-go traffic is at a crawl compared to what it used to be, and my cash game is way behind the curve. My biggest concern is that long-term, there's more profitability in cash games than sit-and-goes, and that playing in sit-and-goes to build my bankroll will damage my development as a cash game player. Do you think there's any benefit to playing both regularly, not in the same session, maybe alternating weekly, or do you think it would be better to specialize in one and mix in an occasional sprinkling of the other for variety? Am I worried for no good reason? I would appreciate any advice you might have. Best regards, Firaga. Well, cool beans, Firaga. Thank you so much for those questions. So for the first question, having a plan for the rest of the hand on the flop is great, or pre-flop having a plan, but it doesn't have to be just a plan for bad cards on the turn or the river. In the hand that you presented, but I didn't read it here, it seems like you planned for cards that didn't improve your hand, and you ignored the cards that could come that would bring you 2-pair or trips. Having a more complete plan on the flop for both bad and good future cards could help in your decision-making process. Also, to answer your general question of whether or not to change your plan, you've got to do it sometimes. I'm sure you've heard something like this quote many times. No plan survives contact with the enemy. You need to be adaptable to whatever cards or actions the turn brings. Don't get caught up and feel like you need to stick to any pre-flop or flop plan that you made. Okay, so for the second question about profitability and sit-and-goes in cash play, Firaga, I feel the exact same way that you do about profitability and sit-and-goes right now, but I still play them because a lot of my opponents in the games that I play are still very weak, and I just really love the structure. I don't play regular speed, I play the turbo speed myself. I don't like longer tournaments, and actually MTTs as well, I prefer turbos. I like to hit and quit it, get in and get out, make my money, but I prescribe, just like I mentioned in question 1, I prescribe to the tight is right philosophy of sit-and-go play, but many of my opponents don't. I'll routinely play with super loose passive fish who gamble their way through the entire sit-and-go from early stages to late, And, of course, the tight is right philosophy can get you in some short stack situations, but that's where lots of push-fold study comes into play, and if you can make better push-fold decisions than your opponents, you'll be way more profitable than they are. So even though the traffic is low, there's still a ton of profitability there, but maybe not long-term profitability. So regarding playing both cash and sit-and-goes, I definitely recommend going on long stints in one at a time. If you're finding cash really enjoyable, then play cash until you start to get bored or the allure of sit-and-goes draw you back, and vice versa. The longer you focus at a stretch in one discipline, the better you'll get at it. If bouncing back and forth in one session isn't good, bouncing back and forth daily or weekly wouldn't be that good either. I would recommend trying to just play cash from here on out for as long as you can. And then when you need a break, when you want to have some fun on sit-and-goes, just do those for a little while, And Firaga, if you're looking to go pro one day, you should just choose one and stick with it. My suggestion would be cash, of course. Throw in sit-and-goes for fun sometimes, but relegate all of your study time to what seems to be the most profitable and long-lasting form of poker. And, cash is it. So thanks again for the question, Firaga, and keep them coming. Now it's time for a poker review. I just read a great article on PokerNews.com by Reed Young. It's called The Hidden Power of the Continuation Bet in Tournament Poker. Reed discusses why C-bets work so well in tournaments and how to determine the bet sizing that will most likely get your opponents to lay down their hand. There's a great video embedded in the article that discusses C-bets and the sizing of C-bets. The video is also from PokerSprout.com, his training site, Reed's very own training site. In the video, he discusses the break-even math behind bet sizing and how to calculate the likelihood that your bet will elicit a fold based on your opponent's pre-flop range. So by watching this video, you'll get a little bit more hand-ranging practice. So it was great stuff, along with the article. Great stuff, of course. And I recommend you check both of them out. I have links to the article and to Reed's site, pokersprout.com, in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening today, and thanks again to Rob, Chris, and Firaga for the questions featured. I hope my answers boost your poker skills. If you're not already there, head over to the show notes page for everything discussed today at smartpokerstudy.com/pod65. And while you're there, sign up for the Smart Poker Study Nation, and for doing that, I'll send you my Ultimate Poker Resource Guide for free. Hit me with any feedback through the show notes or send an email to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. Tweet me at smartpokerstudy or post in the Facebook group at smartpokerstudy.com/discuss. And please, if you have a question that you would like featured on the show, send it in through one of the channels just mentioned, and you'll be famous for a day or for a podcast episode. And of course, don't forget about my Colossus free roll for listeners. Sign up for the newsletter or support me on Patreon for your chance at a free 1% or 2% of my Colossus winnings. First prize is guaranteed to be 1 million bones, so that could be a free 10K or even 20K for you. Alrighty, poker people, be sure to come back for Tuesday's podcast, where I continue the Hand Reading Lab series and discuss using percentage form in hand reading. Of course, word of mouth is the best advertising, and I thank you for sharing this show with other poker people. It only grows with your help, so I'm asking you to share it with someone who will get value from it just like you do. Send them to the show notes page to get them started on all that this podcast has to offer. And don't forget to visit patreon.com/smartpokerstudy to support the show and to collect some nice monthly rewards. Until next time, study smart, play much, and make your next session the best one yet.